Thank you so much for attending the Superintendent's Teacher Advisory Council meeting. We certainly appreciate some of you familiar faces that are returning, and we welcome you for those who are joining us for the first time. We ask that you silence your cell phones. We are recording this meeting, and if you would hold your questions towards the end, we'll be happy to entertain them at this time. So without further delay, we'll be cautious of your time and make sure that you get in and out and safe through this weather. I'd like to welcome to the podium our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Morsees J. Beasley.
Thank you, Jay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Well, thank you for being here today. We realize it's rainy and
A little cool, too, isn't it? The temperature's dropped a little bit. When I left home, it was a little warmer, but now it's cool. But thank you all for being here today. We're going to do our best to get you out of here. And of course, we've got another group that will meet with this evening, our parents and school councils. So we want to respect your time, your presence, and of course, always try to share with you the information that we deem would be most helpful for you to have. And so with that being stated, again, thank you for taking our time to come, staying informed, and we're going to follow the agenda. And so we have a few updates that we're going to provide. And if you have questions, you can just jot the questions down, or we can just kind of answer the questions as we move along, depending on the topic. So we're good with taking our approach, okay? So the first thing is the advanced learning, advanced academic updates. And so I'll just tell you very quickly, you've already heard, rising sixth graders, Christy. I know you're getting settled. I don't know if Christy wants to add it. I'll just start and Christy can add anything. Rising sixth graders will go into accelerated math in the fall towards completing algebra in the 8th grade after 2 years. Rising ninth graders, all of them will be expected to take some type of advanced learning class, whether it be AP or dual enrollment. And that expectation will matriculate with them as they become seniors. You should know that at the elementary level, all of our students will be engaged in some type of PBL, problem-based learning activity or project. We're just basically ensuring that we develop the best model for our kids here in Clayton County Public Schools. You should know that at some point, physical science will be the expectation for all of our students in middle school. And at some point, physics will be the expectation of our high school students. And we know that there are several different ways of teaching high school physics, whether conceptually, algebraically, etc. But physics will be an expectation as well at some point as we roll out advanced academics. Our goal is to move away from these expectations where we have just a few kids who are expected, if you will, to participate in these opportunities, and we want all kids to participate in these opportunities. Will all kids make threes, fours, and fives on the AP exam? No. Are they all making 3s, 4s, and 5s now? No, they're not. Will they be better students? Yes, they will, because they would have been exposed to more rigorous instruction, and I believe just conveying an expectation that we expect our students to do something does something to their self-esteem, and it helps create a different culture for our school system. And so that's exactly what we've decided to do here in Clayton County. It's just time to stop playing around or having these environments where we have high expectations for some kids, very low expectations for other kids. And let's put all of our kids in an expectation for advanced learning. Will they need support? Of course they will. And we're going to provide the support that they need. Will they struggle? Many will. Many will not. That's okay. Because when you're struggling to achieve 100%, you may land at 80%. And that's okay. I don't think it's acceptable for us to stay where we are. As a matter of fact, in light of where we're going as a nation, I think urban school system, suburban school system, all of us need to get away from routing just a small group of kids into high expectations and everyone else into low expectations. We are I mean us as educators, the systems of education, we've got to move fundamentally away from that. It shouldn't be the case where you walk in school and you go on certain advanced, rigorous courses and you know which kids are in there based upon the race or the income level. That just shouldn't be the case. And we need to move away from that. And so we've been working with our partners, College Board, National Math and Science Initiative, to identify which courses would be most appropriate for a ninth grader who's not had an AP experience to take that ninth grade year. So we'll have several courses that we're offering, from human geography to world history to AP computer science. And so we're hopeful that our students will take full advantage. We've got many kids this year. We've seen a significant increase in the students who are taking dual enrollment, and we're expecting to see more students participate in dual enrollment. More kids participate in advanced placement. Our intention is to train everyone up. We're not planning on watering down. When we say college level, we mean college level. And that means that we expect kids to study, we expect teachers to teach using the strategies, but we expect that rigor to be there. We expect it to be relevant, and we expect it to be something that the students will be able to use to develop their critical thinking, their creativity, collaboration, and communication. That's just what we expect. And so there are not many models out there for what we're trying to do, but we've decided as a community that this is what we want to do for our kids here in Clayton County. Instead of other people branding us, we decided to brand ourselves. Will it be a perfect implementation? Probably not. Will we have struggles? Probably so. But will our kids be better at the end? They probably will. Probably will be. And we're not going to make decisions that's convenient for adults. We're going to make decisions that's good for who? The children. Period. And so you say, what implication does it have? We're looking at teachers and principals and curriculum instructional teams. They're looking to support teachers to ensure that they can train and have what they need to help the students have a successful experience. And honestly, we just want the right people. And if you have low expectations of students, you're not the right teacher anymore. You don't probably need to be a good teacher. And if you have low expectations as a principal, you shouldn't be the what? Principal. You should have high expectations of all of your students. And we should be in the business of removing systems and obstacles that prevent students from doing just that. Doing just that. I think a lot of our achievement that we see, whether it be in Clayton County or other places, I think we create these today. It's not that the kids, the research is clear. Children will rise to the level of the expectation of the teacher. And so if they're only rising to a low level, then don't blame the children. And so when I say the teacher, I mean the teacher, the principal, the superintendent, they will rise to our expectations. And so that's what we're doing with advanced learning. So I'll pause here. Chrissy, should I add anything to that?
No, just that we are going to support all teachers who are going to be taking these courses. We'll make sure that PD is being provided. We're opening up more opportunities to that. Any of the courses that are AP courses that are linked to the math, science, or ELA, just know that the NIMSY grant is just wonderful in what it offers also. And we're also taking consideration that the summer remediation, summer enrichment, we'll have some bridge programs also for upcoming 6th graders going into math and upcoming 9th graders going into an AP course. So we are looking at that too. What are we doing to make sure that students are on the same pathway as their teachers are?
One thing I'd like teachers to start doing is we've got to teach the content that we need to teach, but we've got to move away from the responsibility where we feel like we have to teach all the information. There's just absolutely too much information for us to teach. And the information is increasing. And the information that oftentimes they'll need when they graduate or go into the workplace is not the information that we even know today. So our work has to be to develop skills that kids will know how to solve problems, which a part of problem solving is you go out and find information that you need to find. And so we've got to show our kids the skills. How do you think critically? If you have a problem, how do I can't give you all the information, but you've got to be resourceful enough. You've got to know where to go and find that information. And sometimes, in order to solve some problems, the information you may need may not even exist. But that's a part of thinking critically and problem solving when one comes to those types of conclusions as you're doing your research. And so I really want to encourage us as educators, we got to move towards developing students who are actually very astute in critical thinking and encouraging that creativity, how to communicate, how to collaborate. We've got to really create problem-based learning environments in our classrooms. If kids are just sitting there every day taking notes and watching the stage on the stage, that is not going to help them in the long term. That is not going to help them. And so we've got to work diligently. We've got to change our practices, honestly. And sometimes I know practice changes behavior. That's the hardest change. But we've got to really change our practices to help our kids develop the skills that they need for the 21st century. Remember, we cannot teach them all information, but we can provide them resources, right, tools to figure out exactly what information do I need in order to solve this problem. That's the direction that our classrooms have got to be headed in, and I'm pleased to say that we're headed to in all of our classrooms. Even as we move the kids to the advanced placement, it is impossible for you to teach all the content, let's say in a world geography, world history class, on a block schedule. It's impossible. So what do you really teach? You gotta start asking more questions. You gotta ask more questions. You gotta allow kids to start thinking. You gotta allow them to do more research. And you gotta allow them to spend more time collaborating and communicating. Why? Because those are the skills that they really need. Sometimes I think we burden ourselves trying to teach every piece of content, and by the time they get to a test, they've forgotten the content, but that's all we focused on. We didn't really focus on the skills. The skills. How do you read for information in order to solve a problem? Or how do you communicate? Or how do you collaborate if there is a problem? Because you may need to go beyond your sector, if you will, and find out what some other experts think about the problem that you are trying to solve. Those are the skills that we need to develop in our students. The next area would be human resources. So we've got our teacher retention update. We'll talk with Dr. Bush, our chief of HR.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley. Good afternoon. Just wanted to provide a quick update on teacher retention. Probably, like myself, you hear often that there's a shortage of teachers across the metro area, across the U.S., across the country. And while that may be the case, our focus is a little bit differently. We're taking a look at the retention of teachers. Because what I've discovered over the years is that what most school districts do in the metro area is that every 3 to 4 years, we simply trade teachers with neighboring districts. So one of the challenges we embarked upon this year was putting together, forming a teacher retention task force. While it's teacher retention we're focusing on, we're really looking at all employees. It's a cross-section of employees across the districts, classified, certified, elementary, high school, middle school, and so forth. And we're taking a look at really a teacher's career in DeKalb, again, focusing on teachers, looking at all employees. In terms of the onboarding process, when we're advertising jobs, how do we bring them in? How do we orientate them to their job, to their workplace? We're taking a look at those factors that may or may not be happening once the employee reaches his or her location. What's happening there to cause an employee to stay or cause an employee to leave? And then on the end, we're taking a look at our exit survey tools to see if they're most appropriate to give us the information that's needed to make changes that will improve the retention rate. So this is not something that will happen overnight. We've been working, I think, since September. We meet once a month for about an hour, hour and a half, and taking a close look at really all the practices that we do in HR in terms of that onboarding process. And then we extrapolate that to all departments across the district, because we're very clear that, while HR has a part in teacher retention, we're not solely responsible. Because fortunately or unfortunately, once we hire an employee, very rarely receive or communicate with that employee. It's really that specific work location where that employee is. So we're going to spend more time, once we get some foundational pieces in place, to take a look at what's happening or not happening at those schools and departments to figure out what can we do to retain those high-quality employees that we feel are doing the best for our children. So more to come on that end over the next several months.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. And I know there was an article today in the AJC about the substitute issue.
Yes.
And I'll just say that part of our work is to hire, retain, but also to ensure that our folk will come to work every day, period. It is very challenging to run a school or school system when people don't do what? Come to work. And so we're looking at that as well. We've got to create environments where clearly we support everyone, but if you come into this profession, when you sign that contract, when we sign our contracts, we recognize that the learning of our children is dependent upon two things. They got to come to school as students, right? But who else has to come? Teacher has to come. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to understand. Again, part of the system, part of our work is adjusting these systems that we created that are contributing to our data. Dr. Wilson, you want to add anything about that article? Because I know it addressed attendance and it also addressed recruitment and I think the percent of filling positions, etc.
Yes, it did. That was an article that was published today. And actually, I just saw it a few moments ago, where they were talking about the retention rate across several districts across the metro Atlanta. And some school districts do it really well, and some others have challenges. Currently, in Clayton, our substitute fill rate is about 87.5%, 88% of the time. We have an available substitute for a teacher when he or she is out. Obviously, we want that number to be 100. We have made some improvements over the last year. I think last year, the fill rate was at about 79%. So we increased it a little bit, still have more work to do. You may have seen, if not, you'll see in the very near future, where an advertising campaign that we put together to recruit additional substitute teachers. And we're also looking at increasing the number of substitute teachers. Again, that's in addition to really taking a look at why our employees are not coming to work. So we don't want to just hire more substitutes and the number of absences increase. We need to take a look at both, try to see what can we do to fill that gap.
Yeah, and I would just say this, people talk about teacher raises. If we keep having to budget more money for subs, I mean, right now, how much are we budgeting for subs? $6 million? That could be a nice lump sum to divide among teachers if we didn't have to pay out $6 million a year. And so while we acknowledge we need to be absent, and all of us are absent at times, being absent one day versus 5 days a month, that's a different conversation. And that's what we've got to continue to clearly discuss. Recruit, retain those who are quality teachers, but for those of us who decide to stay, we've got to improve our attendance because our children deserve so much better than that. And so clearly we've seen an improvement. It would be great if we could get to 100%, but you also know that there are many variables that play into it. So we'll continue to work on that very complex issue as we continue to make more progress. Our next area is our business services department, so we'll toss it over to Ms. Benton, our CFO, and give us an update on compensation. Updates at compensation, and I want her to go just mention budget as well.
Good afternoon. So just very briefly, the compensation study update, we have just started, probably within the last 3 to 4 weeks, meeting internally so that we can understand a little better our compensation study. As you guys are aware, we have been talking about executing a compensation strategy probably for the last 18 months. So internally, we have an internal team where we started meeting and trying to establish our philosophy. Of course, one thing that we've been communicating over the last several months is that we want to be a district, one of the highest paying districts in the metro area. So we internally are pulling that data, trying to understand where we land with some of the other major districts around. So that study has just started. That work has just started internally. I'm sure that it's going to be several months. The superintendent has asked us to do a number of things, and so we're looking at that, understanding some of the major districts, APS, some of those districts, what's going on there. So that's the compensation piece. 2020 budget. We internally, again, to business services, we've been working on the budget along with a number of my colleagues in the room. We've been working on the budget for 2020 for the last 2 months. And probably for the last 4 to 5 weeks, my team has been working on the 2020 budget. As many of you are following some of the things that the governor is saying, some of the things that's coming out of legislation, we're getting all of that information. All of that will happen in time. But again, it's still preliminary. And as we get more information, we'll share it abroad.
So more to come. I would just tell you, stay tuned to the board meetings, because as we get closer to the month of April, we'll be identifying, once we get a handle on our revenues, we get a handle on expenditures, we'll be able to know if we're in a position to do some increases, some percent increases. We're leaning that way, just so you'll know. So we're again, remember last year we said if we could increase our fund balance, right? And remember, when you increase one year, because it's going into salaries, you've got to be able to sustain it, right? And so if we see that we can increase and sustain, then that's exactly what we plan on sharing or recommending to our board. So more to come in that area. Just stay tuned. Stay tuned as we continue to strengthen our fiscal house. And we're a lot better today than we have been. That's why this compensation study is very important, because as we strengthen our fund balance, it will be very important to us to go ahead and implement a plan to ensure that our goal is for our county to be one of the highest paying districts in the metro area. And I don't believe that we're too far from the top. Maybe I think we're number 3, maybe. We're number 3, so with a good plan and some funds, I believe we can get there. We can get there over time. Next, we're going to toss it to Ron Smith, our technology chief, to share how we're doing with our one-to-one initiative that we call Extending Learning from Beyond the Classroom.
Good afternoon. So is everybody familiar with the Extended Learning Beyond the Classroom initiative that we're doing in the district? So we started out with 4 schools. This is a pilot year. The update for me is this. So far this year, those 4 schools have done phenomenally well. One of the big issues that we thought we were going to wrestle with was, and I know most of you can guess what that was, right? Damaged, lost, and stolen. But out of 1,000 devices, we're down to about 8% in terms of students losing, damaging, or having those devices stolen. I think we've had only 2 stolen, and I almost want to say, Chief Trey just left, but we got those 2 devices back. So overall, it's going extremely well. I gave Dr. Beasley an update in cabinet the other day, and one of the things that resonated with me is one of the teachers who has a group of 3rd grade students who have the devices. She said that she was extremely happy about her 3rd graders having access to those devices over the whole year, because it helped them to prepare for the GMAT test. You know, everything is going to be online. So we think it's great. As far as the project, there are 2 things that I want to remind you. One is, the goal is in 4 years to have all third grade students through 12th grade students to have a device that they take home. We're not calling it one-to-one like Dr. Beasley said, it's called extended learning beyond the classroom, because there is some blending of taking advantage of those Chromebooks when students are home for inclement weather, right? The learning continues if they have those devices and they have that connectivity. The other thing, and the last thing that I'll share, Dr. Beasley, is none of this will ever happen unless, and we can't, like Dr. Beasley would say, we can't tell you how to vote. There's a SPLOS referendum coming up on March the 19th. So we can't tell you how to vote, but we can tell you to encourage your friends, colleagues, and neighbors to get out and vote, so that none of this stuff will happen. None of this stuff will happen with the one-to-one extended learning beyond the classroom unless that referendum gets passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rod. You want to mention the classroom refresh? Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, the classroom, we're at, if you're at a school where you don't have a flat panel in your classroom, raise your hand. Because I think right now we're at about 98%, right? So that refresh removed all of the projectors. Do you like the panels? I think your teachers like them, your students like them. We had some questions about the height of the board and stuff, and we kind of explained our rationale for that. If you look at some of the videos that we've done, the little babies, the reason we lowered them is because the little babies couldn't reach up high, right? So we came up with a standard for elementary school where we took the shortest kid, and we went to schools and we actually measured the height of kids. You don't think I'm kidding? We did, so that we could see how far those kids would have to struggle to write. Now, if you have a really, really short kid, teachers have figured out a way to put a little step stool in front of them so they can still reach it. But we're about 98% complete. The thing that my colleague who's not here, April Mayo, would tell you is that we have lots of training in your schools. You should have a dedicated DLS, a digital learning specialist, has been dedicated to your school. Take advantage of them. We're paying for those people, and what we're trying to do with them is we're trying to increase the adoption rate of this technology. 4 or 5 years ago, we rolled out, and this is prior to me being here, prior to Dr. Beasley, we rolled out, or the school district rolled out, some digital learning classroom technology that they didn't, there was no real strategy around how we were going to use that to improve instruction. This year, and with this initiative, I think we're doing a much better job. We're probably seeing right now about 40 to 50% adoption. We want that number to go up. So if you have, raise your hand if you know the DLS in your school, because I will have a, all right, perfect. So if you don't know the DLS in your school, reach out to me, reach out to your principal. They should know who that DLS is. Take advantage of that person. They are there to do shoulder-to-shoulder coaching with you. They are there to explain that equipment from the document, camera, the board, and the student response system. So they should know all of that, okay? You're going to wait for questions, right? Is that good, Dr.
That's great. And you should know whenever you get the surveys from April Mayo, complete those surveys, because we're collecting that data at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and post, so we can see if our practices are changing over time. So I know they're not very long surveys, but they do take a minute or two to complete. So we encourage you. I know sometimes you think, oh, another survey. But we do need the information because we're trying to assess whether or not our practices are actually changing over time. So thank you. And the last area on the agenda, Rod already went there, relative to the technology. But you should have, in addition to the advanced learning brochure that you have and some other documents, you should have this document here and a SPLOS brochure, a SPLOS update brochure. I'm just going to use this one here. This is the one that we use, I believe, for the most recent state of schools. But I want you to look under SPLOS 6. As you know, you should know. If you don't know, you should know. The current SPLOS ends December of this year, December of 2019. And so in order to continue with our renovations, our building of new schools, as Rod shared, the technology initiative, purchasing of new buses, etc., our community has to decide whether or not it wants to continue taxing itself a penny on every dollar. And so while I and staff and you as educators in our official capacities, we cannot tell people how to vote, we can inform people as to what projects are on the referendum, and then the community has to decide what it wants to do. And so I want you to see very quickly what projects are listed for this new SPLOS in the event, and I'm hopeful it passes on March 19th. We'll be building a new elementary school in the Lovejoy area. It will be a STEM elementary school. Forest Park will get a new middle school. Marble High School will get a new facility as well. We'll also build a college and career academy that will have very innovative academic programs such as artificial intelligence, aviation. We're looking at logistics and transportation. So I want to say sports medicine, officiating, etc. We're really trying to think out of the box. Meet the workforce development needs here in Clayton County, but also prepare our kids for going well beyond Clayton County. Of course, we'll have some renovation upgrades, HVAC upgrades as well. Rob already mentioned the one-to-one, our extending learning beyond the classroom, and I've got to decide if we're using extended or extending. I believe it's extending. Extending learning beyond the classroom. General technology improvements will continue. Then we, of course, I've already mentioned the purchase of our new school buses, because we want to always keep our fleet within a certain age range. And then, of course, a new early learning center for the Riverdale area. This will be an early learning center where we hadn't decided what ages and grade levels it will house, but probably from 3-year-olds all the way up to second grade, possibly third grade, it just depends. And our goal is, right now, you may not know this, but we serve about 25% of Clayton County's pre-K age children in our pre-K programs. Another 25% are served through the private providers. So basically 50% of the kids in Clayton County are not going to pre-K. So we'd like to chip away at that. And if we can offer more seats through this facility, that's exactly what we're planning to do. It will be a state-of-the-art early learning center that will focus on literacy, but they'll have access to, we're thinking about putting a WIC office there so moms who need WIC can get their WIC. We're thinking about a doctor's office, dental office, all the services that we know moms need to have so they don't have to go 10 different places. They can bring the children to us for pre-K and get all of those services at the same time. And so that will be an opportunity for our community to really support early learning. As you all well know, many times, and our data is very clear, we can get kids in pre-K. Oftentimes, we can get them reading on or above grade level. That extra year makes a difference. That extra year makes a difference. And so we would like more of our kids having that opportunity. As you can see there, the maximum revenue that would be slated to be collected, and the revenue or collection period is identified there as well, starting in January of 2020 through December of 2024. And so we'll pause here to see if you have any questions. And so what I would encourage you to do is, of course, in your official teaching employee capacity, you can't tell people how to vote. And when you're at home and you're a citizen, you got to vote. You tell them, yes, I'm voting for it. Yes. Yes. Because the truth of the matter is, think about it this way. If we, as a community, decided not to vote, that means all the projects that we currently have that we need to finish up, they'll stop. Now, who are you going to draw to your community? To buy houses or otherwise if everything freezes and stops because the community says we don't want to support new facilities for our children to go to school in. And so, again, there is no plan B. There's no secret pot of money somewhere that we can go to in order to do these things. It has to be through the SPLOS option. And so, there you have it. There you have it. So any questions? So Ronald, I believe, Mr. White has the microphone and will entertain any questions or comments that you may have.
Good
Just tell us who you are, what school, okay?
I'm Dr. Lakeisha Janet, Sequoia Middle School. I have two questions. One question was pertaining to the attendance of teachers. Are there any plans to adjust the current calendar, so that teachers can get more built-in days off, so they don't have to take so many days off? For example, extending the fall break and the winter break?
So, did we send that survey? Did you see the survey about the calendar? Okay, if you had that email, you should. So we are collecting some data to see if there is an appetite for like that fall break. But we have to understand, I believe in making an informed decision. If you give yourself a fall break, that means you gotta take some days away from somewhere else, and you gotta tack days on at the end of the year, right? So we're trying to see is there a preference that our community would like to share. And so there's a survey out there. So our goal is at some point in the near future, after we've done the survey, we've looked at the data, we figured it out, we may bring back to the board a recommendation to modify it. Okay?
Second question, are there any plans to offer teachers housing incentives to boost or live in Clayton?
You have some good questions. That's good though, but that's good. So we've been talking with the county. They're trying to see if they can find some money to help us do that. Housing incentives to actually purchase a house right here in Clayton County. And so that's part of that, the relationship we would need to have with the government. And so our Chairman Turner and the commissioners, they are actually having those conversations right now to see what pot of money we can come up with to help us in that area.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Hey, Dr. Lee. My name is Jimmy Hill, Coach Hill, and I'm in Park Middle School. So I'm really excited about this new school thing. Dr. Beasley, a lot of people are visual, and I would like to get something like a CD or some kind of presentation, a quick presentation where we can hand things out to people saying, watch this CD, and what kind of school we're going to get, and a couple of pictures worth 1,000 words. So if we can get something like that to our voters, that would highly motivate them. And a lot of people, when they hear about a new school, sometimes they think that where the school is now, that it won't be there. I mean, the new school will be somewhere else. And I'm assuming that it's going to be on the same premises. I'm not sure.
That's a good assumption. You are correct. Forest Park Middle School is going to be a tear down, build up.
Right. I figured that. But a lot of people don't know that. They might vote against it because they think it's going to be somewhere else. Another thing that disturbed me was, and I could be wrong about the figures, I think the national debt now is $22 trillion, and we got to educate our young people on, be more aggressive on how to handle money and how to, because we're going to collapse. We're not, but our young people are going to face a situation that we're going to collapse. Our debt's going to collapse, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody else does. But we have to get our kids prepared on how to invest overseas, foreign markets, stock market, pink sheets, all this other good stuff that I'm into. But they can have a solid foundation, because the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. And I believe we're working on a video that may be helpful. I don't know if it will speak to specifically what will happen at Forest Park Middle School, but it will speak to the overall SPLOS. But once we get in a position where we know we'll have revenue coming in for the new Forest Park Middle School, that's when, at some point in that 5 years, we'll begin the design phase, etc.
How about educating our kids?
Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd also recommend for you to share the SPLOS document that we've shared with all of our stakeholders via email. It's a PDF that obviously highlights SPLOS 5 construction projects and all the things that we've done within the school system, and it forecasts what we're planning to do with SPLOS 6. So that's something you can readily share via email to anyone. And so we have completed, ironically today, video update, and we'll be able to share that link with you as well. But meanwhile, go forward, please extend that link to show everyone what we've done so far.
And that video will be sent to everyone. It even goes to students, Rod, so let's make sure we send it to students. We will be developing a postcard as a reminder for the vote. We can't tell people how to vote because the school system, whether y'all know it or not, we pay for this election. Did you all realize that? So if we pay for an election, we need folks to go out and vote. We can't tell you how to vote, but that bill for the election is paid through the school system because it's an East Boston. And so we encourage everyone. And again, you're getting the weekly reminders about SPLOS, and you'll continue to get those reminders until the day before the actual SPLOS vote, which is March 18th. March 19th. But the reminders will stop on, the last one will be on March 18th.
Well, my first question is, can we have access to our pay documents at home?
Get access to your...
Our pay documents over the summer, it's opened up where we can access them at home, but during the school year, it's shut off. We can't access it unless we're at school.
I'll let Rod respond.
So what happened during the summer or right before that, I don't know if you remember in the news, many school districts got hacked and they were redirecting your direct deposits to those little green cards that people get. And we had to close that access down because we didn't want to run the risk. And while we weren't one of the school districts that actually had that lost any money, there were several districts in the metro area. I think one district lost up to $70,000. We are working towards, with the new MUNA system, when the new MUNA system is stood up, you'll regain that access. So it will come back. It's just that right now, that part of it is still on the old AS400, or some people call it the green screen. So once we are completely live with HR, and that's phase 1, phase 2, and when we finish with phase 2, that access should come back. So I think we're slotted to go live sometime around June, but that date is still kind of up in the air. But you will regain that access. But we did it, honestly, to protect our end users, our teachers.
I figured there was a good reason for it, but I just didn't know what it was. And Dr. Beasley, I like what you're saying about getting our kids thinking critically and training them to do that. Teachers also need to be able to think critically. I mean, I know that goes without saying, but I know we have curriculum that we are using to teach, but in some areas it seems like the curriculum is like it, and we're not really encouraged to think about the curriculum, to understand it, and even, go beyond that, when we're teaching our students. And I wanted to find out whether or not it's possible to make that an actual goal. I'm just going to give you an example. We had our data meeting, last week, where we talked about MOI data. And there are questions about why students did what they did. And I responded and was immediately kind of cut off and told, "You're not going to bring me." I said, "Yes, but my students did awesome. They had exponential growth from beginning of the year to middle of the year, exponential growth. But because I didn't go good, day by day in the lessons, but went beyond that, it was almost as if it wasn't valid. I'm not even sure exactly what that means. I had to go back and ask if I had trouble, because I did another way, and I was told, no, you're not in trouble. But I still was a little bit lost on that because, I'm thinking we should be encouraging our teachers to think outside of the box, to figure out the problems that our kids have in a classroom and not be limited to what the TE or,
And that's just one resource.
Right, so that's a resource.
Now, we spend a lot of money on those resources, don't get me wrong. But that's just one resource, and so.
And the thing is, that's how I use my reading teaching things as a resource. And they're great resources, but I use them, I take them and I make it mine, and I do it, in a way that's going to be most productive.
Well, I tell you one thing, Dr. Lee and I, we've had a conversation recently just about that. Because I think we've spoon-fed people so much that there seems to be, we created a system, if you will, where people are not thinking critically. Because
it was discouraged.
Yeah.
The administration before you really discouraged it because it was, you do this and then just this, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's all you do. And if you try to, critique, to actually look at the curriculum and say, well, what about this part? It seems to be weak in this area or that area. You don't say that, you're in trouble. But things have really changed since you're here, so I'm really pleased about that. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, again with teachers thinking critically. You're saying that teachers should have high expectations of their students. That's also something that needs to be for teachers as well. Teachers need to have leaders need to have high expectations for teachers. And I know they do. But, again, when I hear explanations about why my kids did well, you've got all this experience, you've got great training from your colleges where we went to, national board certified. Of course, your kids did great because you know how to teach, but we have other teachers in the district who went to alternative training, programs, and they need, this. And my thoughts are, do we not have confidence in our teachers? Do we not understand that they are capable of doing high and awesome things? It's not just, teachers who've got all this experience. All of them can learn. All of them can, if we hold those expectations for them, they can do it. But what are we doing as a district? Because I know I'm in my own little.
That's okay. That's a great question. I think, if I may, I think what we're speaking to is building that leader and teacher capacity.
Right.
And so teacher capacity is important, but we're also working on leader capacity. And the capacity to actually do this work. The day where you just had somebody who came in and you basically followed a manual, that day is over. We got to have leaders who know how to think critically. Am I right, leaders? You got to be able to look at your data. And you got to. If we've got a leader today that thinks that the only resource a teacher should use is in the purchase instructional material, clearly we got the wrong leader in place, because that is one resource out of many. Similarly, teachers, building that capacity is very important. So to answer your question, that's part of our work. When we meet with principals and we're doing training, we're building that capacity for this work, because this work is very complex work. Teaching is complex work, but it can be done if one has the will, the skill, and the combination of those things in order to move the students forward in their learning. And so I will say that we're headed in that direction. We are looking at the data, and even your superintendent. I look at the data, but I don't just look at the data. I look at the leadership. I look at other pieces, indicators, if the school is actually moving, because you just can't look at one piece of data to decide. You got to look at quite a few pieces of data to decide, and you got to know how to analyze that data, right? And then once you analyze, you got to figure out, okay, then what's really the solution to improving that situation? And so that's the type of thinking we've got to all do as we roll out advanced learning, we told the team to understand this is a complex problem. So let's not come up with simple, everybody's a checklist solutions. I'm telling y'all, it's not a checklist. Principals, they came to us the other day. Well, what if they have a situation where the parent and this and that, and they don't really care for the advanced learning? Why are you asking me that question? You're the principal. You mentioned everyone that needed to be in that conversation already. The principal, the teacher, the parent, and the student. So all four of you all can't figure out exactly what needs to be done and do what's in the best interest of the child?
And is there, if you have plans for utilizing, teachers who have great capacity, shown, a history of doing, exponential growth, because what I've noticed, I've worked in my classes as kind of a laboratory for all these years that I've taught kindergarten. And I've made a point of figuring out what works and what doesn't. And I'm able to look at a curriculum and say, well, and see what parts are good and which parts are not as good. But it seems like nobody is interested in knowing. No one is interested when they see my results. Nobody asking questions about what are you doing, to get these results.
Yeah, I would encourage you to really get plugged into CIA, into Christie, and there are some opportunities. Clearly, I would hope that expertise is being fully taken advantage of at the school level, where it probably really matters the most, right? And then, of course, taking full advantage of the opportunities where we have teachers who are working with the various content specialists, but I want to move us away from just thinking in your particular content area, math only, or ELA, or science, because the problems we need kids to solve require all of those disciplines working together. So we've got to even retrain ourselves. I know we all go to school and we get certified in a subject, but the truth of the matter is our children are solving problems that require them to address issues, solve problems, know content, not just in the subject that I was certified in, but in many subject areas. And so we're all going through a shift right now. And I think the faster the more we accelerate us going through this shift, I think the better our students will be.
Good evening, Dr. Bisi. I have two questions, and my academic side. I just wanted to know, is there any way we can introduce AP calculus in elite scholars? The thing is,
The question, can you do
the
what?
AP calculus, like advanced program calculus.
AP calculus, is it not being offered there?
Yes.
Okay.
Because most of the universities are preferring that one, and most of my students are very much interested in doing the AP calculus.
Okay, so I want to make sure we understood the question.
So are we understanding that the school only, right now, they'll
We
only
have
offer
AP
stats,
statistics.
but y'all don't have calc?
Yes, ma'am.
So you want to offer AP calc for next year?
I suggest.
Your school has the option of being able to offer AP calc, and that would be looking at, have you built the students ready to go into that? So you would need to go back to your administration and ask, could there be a segment or, for AP Calc next year, and show the body of students that you have that would go into the class the following year. We would just have to make sure, if your school has never offered the course before, there is a form that they have to fill out to ask to be able to offer the course, but all you do is get permission and everyone says yes, and you just need to make sure there's enough text.
Do we need to submit it to you?
Well, it's, if you'll email me about this question, I'll send you the form, and I'll send you basically what I've just gone through, and then, y'all would just have to do it, but we would have the text, just because there's not a plethora of AP Calc classes out there, so.
Because you know that AP Calc has a lot of growth.
Right, but if you
Things
know
like,
in your AP Stat class that you've got enough kids in that class who would be successful
Yes,
in
ma'am.
AP Calc, then that's a conversation with your administrator, and to ask if we have that course for next year.
And I will say this, with us going to block at the high school, they will have room to take that AP calculus. And I encourage, being a former math teacher, if kids can take calculus before they leave high school, I encourage them to do so.
Yeah, that's what.
And that would be covered by Lindsay also, so you would get support there too, and so would the students.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
And the last question, like for the technology, like, is there any way we can connect the laptops wirelessly to the panel, so that the teachers can do the multitasking? You know what I'm saying?
I do,
I'm
but,
very,
the question,
Repeat the question for us, Ron.
well, he wants to know if we can wirelessly connect the laptops to the flat panels,
Yes.
right? Well, the flat panels are a computer in and of itself, so there's really no need to connect the laptop to the panel. Having said that, you can use a VGA cable to connect, but I don't think there's a wireless way with the laptop to laptop. There may be some other apps that we can research to connect from your laptop, but the board itself is a PC. There is a PC module in there that runs Windows 10. Does that, I mean, and maybe we could talk offline so you can tell me what it is you're trying to solve.
So we have a couple of options to open it. You can use the Google Chromecast.
Mm-hmm.
If not, there is a MediaCast. That is a built-in app for the Windows. So
Oh,
we can use that.
I think I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. We can talk afterwards.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Bethany Booth, and I'm at Swin Elementary. I think this question is for Ms. Heath. This first part anyway. Question, do we have enough AP and honors certified teachers in order to roll out this program? Also, the enrichment, summer enrichment that we're speaking about, how many slots are there? Are they going to be offered to all 5th and 6th graders and 9th graders?
Let's start with the first question, so I don't lose my train of thought. So it sounds like it's a lot. Okay, so, Destiny, again, it was, how many, do we have enough teachers for these positions? Okay, so for a teacher to be an AP teacher, then they need to meet 3 criteria per our I policy. And that is, they need to be highly qualified in that subject. They need to have taken an APSI, so an Advanced Placement Summer Institute, in that coursework at least once every 5 years. And the last thing is they need to be either gifted endorsed or educated able learner, which is the first 10 hours of the gifted endorsement. So we have taken in consideration, right now we're doing big surveys with all the middle and high schools to ask, what course are you going to be offering? What do they need so that we can start providing that? So, for instance, with an AP course, if the teacher's not gifted endorsed, that's okay. We'll provide them the APSI this summer. So any teacher who's going to teach a math, science, or ELA AP course, they'll automatically get required training with Nancy. And that'll be the second week of July. For all of the social studies, fine arts, and world language, we will provide those teachers to go to an Advanced Placement Summer Institute this summer. They're usually offered once, there's at least one offered in June and there's one offered in July. So you'll have that, training. Also, the state of Georgia provides 1-day free training in October, November. I send as many teachers in the county. If they need to go, they go, and I pay for subsequent. When it comes to educating the able learner, we have a course open right now. And of course, I heard today it's filled. So we will offer it again. It's only 10 hours, so you go for the first day for a face-to-face, and then the rest of it is online. So it's only going to take 2 weeks to take the course, 2 to 3 weeks. And so what will happen is we'll start one on February 25th. I'll go on and get one rolling for March. I need to do one in April. We'll do more. So we will offer as much training as possible for upcoming AP teachers. One of the other things that we're trying to do with the gifted endorsement, so those of you who are gifted endorsed knows that gifted endorsement is just like any endorsement. It can be an arduous year of taking the endorsement. You start in September, it goes all the way to March. Destiny knows that because she took it with me. So, I taught it. So the big thing here is we're trying to move toward a blended version of our endorsement. So we went through a big audit with the PSC last year that helped us modify and change the endorsement. So what we're hoping is, and I'm not a hope, we're gonna do, starting in June, we're gonna offer 2 cohorts for the summer. Teachers will be able to take the gifted endorsement starting in June. We'll finish it by September. So I don't know if I can do it in 2 months, but we can do it in 4 months. And you'll have some face-to-face, because you need to be face-to-face on some of this stuff. But you will also have a lot of it will be blended there. So you start in June, by the end of September, you have your gifted endorsement. And what we will do then is the ones that we run all year long, they'll be shortened and modified too. So it may start in September, but it may end by January or February, and you'll be able to go through it. Again, we will do that more blended. So we're in the process. That takes time because we have to go through and figure out how do we put that together. But our hope is starting in March, we'll be sending out information about the summer. So I think I've answered everything on the first question.
And you did say if all kids can go to the summer retreat?
I hadn't got to that one. Okay, so the second question was about the enrichments. So we have gone back and we've talked about the enrichments this summer. And the intent is that it will be in 2 sessions. So if we have a max of students, and we've looked at the total number of students, if we had a max of every child in Clayton County, right now we don't think that would happen, just because we think at least 50%. If 50% do come, and that means that all the stars align and 50% do, then we will have 2 sessions. So there'll be 1 session 1 week, and there'll be a second session the other week. We'll keep in mind that if we start doing, we'll probably do more surveying to see how many students will be coming, but we will accommodate as many children as we possibly can. And I know that the enrichment will still offer some of the same really great programs that were offered. So even with the summer bridges, they will be innovative in how they are done with children. It's not, we don't want this as a punishment, you know, oh my gosh. You know, they're going in and doing some really innovative things and helping prepare. We did something like that already last year with AP courses. We had 3 pre-AP courses that we did, and the students and teachers that attended had a great time and really enjoyed it. And it helped 9 middle school kids coming to it also. So we will have those opportunities on there.
Good question.
Okay, and now for Mr. Superintendent. Okay, thank you.
Good.
And these questions are actually coming from some teachers at my school. The first one is, they want to know, are we actually having a transfer fair this year? The Mimeo board.
Good afternoon again. This year we will, based on feedback that we received from principals regarding the transfer process, for many years we held the transfer fair and maybe 3% of the employees came to the fair. So in lieu of the transfer fair, we still will have the opportunity for transfers to take place. It will just be done a little differently. You'll get information about that, whereby you will essentially send your information to the schools that you're interested in, and you will connect with that principal for an interview if he or she is interested in you working at a location and you're interested in working there. So the opportunity is still there. We just won't have the fair because of low turnout in the past.
And as far as the Mimeo board, I had a teacher tell me that they signed up for the class, for the PD for the Mimeo board. But the class, of course, asked them to use the accessories. And the accessories such as the instrument document camera and the Mimeo pad to go with it. And because there's, I guess, there's a review that was given per school that could be checked out, they didn't have access to it, so they want to know if we are actually going to be able to gain access to all the components of the Mimeo board.
That's an excellent question, and I'm glad you're even asking that you guys want to use it. So the way that we went about figuring out how to roll the digital classroom refresh out was we decided to put a flat panel in every classroom. The total spend for the project right now is about $17 million. We used SPLOS 5 for that, so we literally just ran out of funds. So we had to come up with a way that we felt like we could get the technology to as many teachers as possible. So we decided to put a flat panel in every classroom. We decided to give every teacher believe, and I hope I'm correct when I say this, Vimeo Pad. Teachers. Huh? I want to make sure that I'm right, so I'll double check on that. But we should have given every teacher a Vimeo Pad. Okay. The response systems, the student votes, we were only able to give out a limited set of those for checkout. And the Vimeo View, we were only able to give a limited amount for checkout. And it really came down to funding. What we've been encouraging teachers to work with their principals on is you can spend title funds to purchase those other devices. We call it, and it's the difference between supplement and supplant, and I don't want to get into that big discussion, but we supply the schools with the devices that we can, and then title funds can supplement that. So you can spend title funds to supplement for those documents. We call them Vimeo votes and Vimeo view. But to answer your question, we just ran out of money.
And the last one. So you were during the CFO when she was giving us our update. She did briefly mention pay. She did mention, well, she didn't really mention by name, but Governor. Okay. So all the teachers want to know is if it does go past the voting and they give it $3,000, is it actually, we know it's going to be allotted first to the district. Is the district actually going to give it to the teachers?
We're looking at that because, see, the governor has grand proposal, which is great, but it creates an expense for the district that we had budgeted. And so we've got to, so let's say the governor says 3,000, there's an expense that comes with that. And so the finance team is looking at that, and we're trying to figure out exactly what that will look like. Is it a percent? 2-3%? So we're looking at that to see. But just remember this, that whatever the governor promised, he won't give us all the money needed for that.
To add one thing to that, just to be mindful that when the governor says he or she is going to, or he's going to give a $3,000 pay increase, that's based on the teacher salary scale. The teacher salary scale for the state is much lower than the teacher salary scale for the district. So, for example, the state may say we're going to give a $3,000 increase to a teacher with a bachelor's degree and 5 years of experience. On the state scale, it may be $35,000. Well, in a school system such as Clayton, it may be $44,000. So yes, the government is giving the 3, but it's based on a lower scale. So that's the extra expense that I think Dr. Beasley is speaking of.
So he did what politicians do. They make promises. And then we do what we got to do is we got to try to make it a reality in whatever way is the best way, recognizing the expenditures that we have to pay for increased benefits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's exactly what we're working on. And our commitment is once we're doing our pencil pushing now. So when we roll it out, it is it. We're not going to have to roll back. Does that make sense, everybody? And so we just want to make sure we're doing it right. But I can assure you, we're working toward an increase, which is a good thing.
Okay, 1 second, Rod has an update.
So I simply text to ask the staff, every teacher is supposed to get a Vimeo slate. There was a backlog from the manufacturer. That's why we haven't.
So we coming from China?
It is coming from China.
It
is coming from China. But I am accurate when I tell you about the Vimeo votes and the views. We just didn't have enough money to do those. But every teacher should eventually get a slate. So I'm glad it was, they got the technology.
Hi, my name is Amanda Schroeder, and I teach at Jonesboro High School. I got a couple of questions. The first one is technology related, having to do with our extended learning program. Are these Chromebooks, laptops, tablets, what kind of devices?
They are Chromebook devices.
Okay. And are any of the pilot programs in high schools right now?
Yes. So the pilot schools are North Clayton High School, The middle school is Babb. The two elementaries are Harper and Brown. Yeah.
And are there any programs or anything in place to assist students that do not have access to internet at home?
It's a great question. So as a part of this particular program, the pilot program, and going forward, we've set aside or provisioned or planned for those students who may not have access at home to either provide them a modified device or to explain that you could use Comcast Essentials for $9.95. But let me be honest with you on something that we thought went into the done usually done line. Initially, we knew we were going to roll out about 1,000 devices. Based on all the research that we had found, and it was old research, but it was the best we could find, it basically said that a community like ours, and I don't really know what that means, but they were talking about economically disadvantaged or whatever, we would have to have, basically what they were saying, about 30% of our students wouldn't have internet access. We've rolled out 1,000 devices. I ventured to get anybody to guess and get the number right of the modified devices that we passed out for those 1,000 devices.
If they don't have internet.
If they don't have internet, they could have come to us and we would have provided them that device. How many people took advantage of it?
35.
35. That's a good guess. Anybody else? 20. We had 2 people to take advantage. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But basically what we've been saying is that our students don't have internet access, and what we found is they do. We looked at another study, and it's a more recent one, Dr. Let me give you back the mic. They said it was about 15%. So just understand that even though those numbers are low now, we still don't have any way to fully understand or to take that out by saying, you know, we only passed out 2, so we won't need that provision going forward. We're keeping that provision in. Until we get to the end, until we know exactly how many students need access, it's going to be there. We hope that there'll be a substantial savings by not having to do that, but at the end of the day, we know there may be some families that are challenged in that area, and we want to be able to provide them that access.
My next question has to do with concerns about issues with last-minute substitute cancellations. I've seen a big increase in that happening this year, and it just is kind of freaky for me because I'm just like, you know, the night before it's 10 p.m., I'm going to be out the next couple of days, and then I get an email saying my sub is canceled on me. And it seems like it just keeps happening. Talking to other teachers, it just always happens. And like, I don't know if there's, you know, like us as teachers, we can't just call in the night before and say, oh, I'm not going to be there tomorrow, and then just, you know, and then be okay, be okay. And I know that we already, like you said earlier, there's already issues with finding enough subs to fill any open positions, but is there something, you know, like a 3 strikes, you're out? Because it seems like it just always, seems to happen.
We're looking into that to see if we can discern some patterns in terms of if there are particular substitutes who are doing this. Based on our preliminary research, we haven't been able to find a subset of subs who are doing this on a consistent basis. It seems to be more sporadic. So it's something that we're just going to have to monitor closely and stay in communication with our principals to kind of help us better determine, you know, who these individuals are. But hopefully, you know, it doesn't happen too often, and when it does, hopefully our principals are able to make some provisions internally to provide coverage. But, you know, so I hope that it doesn't ever happen.
But I will say this, as a former principal, I would always encourage teachers, you do your part. Because if you've got to be out, you just got to be out. You just do that in a timely manner. And all the time you will get a sub, someone will take the assignment. But if someone pulls out at the last minute, it could be that morning. That's the principal's responsibility. That's why we have principals and the administrators. That's their responsibility. Even though we didn't like it, I didn't like it. That's just part of our work. And so while I appreciate you being concerned, and that's something that HR will look at, honestly, if you've done your part and you've got to be out, that's not your concern. We've got to make sure the administrators are figuring out how those classes will be covered. So I don't want you internalizing that burden. That's not your burden.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that they're,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, again, even if there's some way just to look online, to look at the subs and see.
They can look and see. I don't know exactly what parameters of reporting we can get, but we can work on that. The challenge is, it's being we want to address that, but we don't want to deplete our sub pool either. And so you gotta be, you don't want to be too heavy-handed because then you created another problem. The word will get out. Well, you don't want to go to Clayton. And then that creates another issue that we have to deal with, a lack of subs. So there's no perfect answer.
And the last thing I want to talk about has to do with our fine arts theater programs, like going through everything. Now with this new 4x4 block we're coming up to, the high schools, of course, have, it's less time. We don't really have much opportunity to really start at the beginning. Start beginners at the high school level because of the less, having the year-long programs, which Dr. Riley knows all about this. She did inform me that we are working on, the county is working on something to revamp like theater programs and get started back up in the upper elementary and middle. But one thing that always seemed to come up was that it's principal's choice about what is offered at their school, which I can understand. The principal knows their school best, the principal, chooses what should be going, but it seems like a lot of times when it's principal's choice, it's a lot of times it leads to cuts in the middle school fine arts programs, specifically chorus and orchestra.
Well, let me be very clear. Principal's choice, but there are parameters. So we're not in a situation where we can just say we're going without fine arts programs. And so what we do have to do, and this is where teachers and principals have to work vertically, you got to build capacity and interest in programs as children matriculate in age and grade level. If you want a great choir at the high school, you better start rather early. Because if they hadn't sung from grade kindergarten to 8th grade, more than likely, they don't really want to sing in grade 9. And so what you've got to do is create opportunities. And even if that means, let's say you've got a feeder pattern, that there may not be a chorus teacher at the elementary school. See, that's where we've got to be innovative. What can we do to start some type of chorus program as a high school teacher? Because you want to think, I want to build the program. You want to build interest. And so you have to kind of think out of the box and build opportunities in working with the middle school, working with the elementary school to create those opportunities, even if it means that you have certain programs maybe once a year for kids to sing, or you just work with those teachers to say, we want to do a high school program or a middle school program, and here's a song we're going to sing, and I'm going to come down here so many times a semester to teach the song, etc. We've got to think, how do we build the programs like that? We're having the same challenges with the bands. We're having, and it's really going to be incumbent upon all of the high schools in a district like Clayton that has a K-12 fine arts pattern, feeder pattern. It becomes incumbent upon everybody. If you want certain programs, you've got to build the interest in those programs. So it is principal's choice, but not all principal's choice.
Yeah.
A lot of it, it's also driven by student interest, but we are not going to have a situation where we don't have fine arts programs in our schools.
Yeah, because right now, like Jonesboro Middle only has band. They don't have chorus or orchestra because of, I don't know if the issue, what the official issue that they say they have, but I know that were really late in trying to find a teacher where maybe they would get some sort of teacher a month into school, but at that point it's them trying just to survive. Classroom management's been out the window because they've had subs. And then this last year they decided oh well, we're just not gonna have orchestra, let's try choir instead. And same thing, they got someone to come in late and there wasn't any support, they didn't have he basically got in there was no orchestra resources, materials, he had a bunch of there was no chorus materials, there was a bunch of orchestral instruments, but nothing
the list, on the tape, at the top.
Hi, Ms. Tidwell, in primary. First question, my digital learning specialist moved away, so how do I find out who my new digital learning specialist is? Ms. Donaldson was it, and she moved?
Yeah, they are trying to find a replacement for that person right now. But in the interim, they should be, or should have identified somebody who can come over and help you until we have a full replacement. If you'll give me your name before we leave and tell me the school,
Okay.
I'll make sure that that person reaches out to you.
Okay.
She came in. She did come in.
She has come in?
Okay, question 2. I did get a survey about the calendar, to piggyback. But another consideration, possibly coming earlier, they say would you like to come at the end of July? What about the week of, the third week in July, even earlier, to try to build in those extra days in October and February?
Line that you would suggest under there. You taking the survey?
It said the end of July. They just say,
There was another section at the end, if you had other comments or suggestions, to place your comments there.
okay,
But if you wanted to email me independently, I'll make sure that I attach it when we turn in the report to the superintendent.
oh, thank you, or year-round school. I know that's probably out of the question. That would be, not school to be year-round. That's just me. Another quick question, maybe still way out there. Is it possible for teachers to get a free lunch maybe once a week, twice a week?
The lady that you need to talk to is sitting right in front of you. And I know she'll say no.
Kids don't eat all that food because
I do know that there are federal guidelines that we're following and reimbursements, et cetera, so we've got to be very careful.
Quick question. Are we still in the step freeze for next year as well?
We're looking at that right now. And so we're looking at steps and percent increases or combinations. So we're looking at that. The problem that I'll be being very honest with you all, I have a problem with the steps because oftentimes someone who may go from step 7 to 8 may not get an increase like someone who gets a comparable increase like someone who may go from step 19 to 20. And so I'm having challenges with the way we step because I don't see consistency. And that just, to me, that's a concern. You know, if everybody is stepping, why would one teacher step up from one year to the next and get less than someone else who's stepping up a year? And so I'm trying to really rethink how we can approach that in light of the compensation study. I understand the state scale and it's probably comparable with how the state approaches it, but it doesn't mean the state's doing it the right way either. So, but we are considering both right now.
Okay, mine probably quick. Sharon Crawford with Sequoia Middle School. I think this is probably for Kristen. How would the transition look for moving from the general 6th grade math for middle school as well as for the 8th grade going to Algebra 1? How would that look, the transition of it? Or what do you think the process will be for the students coming in, for the teachers that will be teaching the accelerated 6th grade math and for the 8th grade? How will that look?
So your question is, what should this look like for the
Yes,
teachers?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Dr. Clark is working on making sure that not only are teachers going to have an understanding of that curriculum and how that curriculum has changed, and I can't speak to everything that Dr. Clark is going to do, but I can make sure that we do send out more information about what that will look like. I do know also that we are looking at high school level where more children are taking Algebra 1 and trying to get more children taking it at the high school, at the middle school level, but that they may have multiple chances of taking this course. If not successful, there'll just be a different version of that course. The same will go with the math also. but I do promise that there will be professional development that will go over what that curriculum looks like, what the expectations are, and any training that would go with it. So, but I will bring that back to Dr. Clark and make sure. Thank you.
I'll just add that I know one thing Dr. Clark and the team of teachers she's working with is to identify, as you well know, a student who's on the accelerated track. They'll take all of sixth grade, in sixth grade, all of sixth grade content plus half of seventh grade. In seventh grade, they'll take half of seventh grade plus all of eighth grade. So they're looking at the curriculum now to determine what standards they really need to emphasize and which ones are really not that critical relative to being successful in algebra. And so that's part of their work. And clearly, by the time students get to eighth grade, the goal is for kids to be successful in eighth grade algebra. But let's say the kids are not successful. That ninth grade year, they'll go into accelerated algebra, which means that they've had a whole year of algebra, now they'll go into accelerated algebra, which increases the likelihood of them being successful having another year of algebra. And then, okay.
Last question.
Y'all had great questions today, from pay to curriculum to calendars and everything. That's okay. Well, Jade, I believe we've got all these notes. We'll get all the questions, and I think Nikki will work on getting us a summary so we can get that sent out to everybody of the responses. Has this been helpful today? Thank you all for coming. Thank you, and we respect your time. So we'll see you all the next time. Get home safely, okay? Thank you. Don't forget, what's on March 19th?